Have you ever noticed an animal behaving strangely around you, appearing out of nowhere, staring a little too long, or showing up at the exact moment you needed comfort the most? At the time, you probably brushed it off as nothing more than coincidence. Just one of those random moments life throws at us. But what if it wasn't random at all? What if there was something deeper, something unseen quietly unfolding right in front of you? There is a strange yet powerful idea that the world around us is not as silent or ordinary as it seems. That behind these small, almost forgettable moments, something greater may be moving with purpose, guiding, protecting, even trying to reach you when you need it most. According to Padre Pio, coincidences do not truly exist. And this wasn't just a theory he casually believed. It was something he lived and experienced every single day, because unlike most people, he didn't see the spiritual world as distant or abstract. He experienced it as something real, immediate, and constantly present. He spoke with his guardian angel, he endured spiritual battles, and he understood something that many of us overlook, that heaven and earth are not separated by some massive, unreachable distance, but by a veil so thin that in moments of pain, prayer, or desperation, it can almost feel like it disappears. And here is where it becomes even more powerful. Padre Pio taught that God often works quietly, not through dramatic miracles or overwhelming signs, but through simple, almost unnoticed moments woven into our daily lives. And sometimes those moments come through animals, not as superstition, not as magic, but as instruments, part of creation itself, used in ways we rarely stop to recognize. Think about that dog that refused to leave your side, that cat that stayed with you when you felt completely alone, or that bird that appeared exactly when your heart was at its lowest point. What if those weren't random encounters? What if they were intentional, subtle reminders that you are not alone and never have been? What I'm about to share with you may completely change the way you see these moments, because according to Padre Pio, there are three specific animals that have been deeply connected to the presence of angels. And by the end of this, you may realize that something you once ignored was actually heaven trying to reach you. Before we go any further, you need to understand something essential about Padre Pio, because without this, everything else might sound like imagination or exaggeration. But this was not a man who spoke in theories or distant ideas. This was someone who lived face to face with the spiritual world as clearly as you and I experience the physical one. He did not wonder whether angels existed. He spoke with them. He did not question the reality of evil. He fought against it, sometimes waking up bruised and exhausted from battles no one else could see. And because of this, he understood a truth that most people ignore, that God does not always choose dramatic or overwhelming ways to reach us. Instead, he often moves quietly, gently, almost invisibly, especially when a soul is suffering, lost, or on the edge of giving up. Padre Pio taught that heaven does not seek to frighten or force. It respects our freedom. It whispers instead of shouting. And many times, it uses what is already around us, the ordinary elements of creation that we pass by every single day without noticing. And among these, animals hold a unique place, because unlike humans, they do not pretend, they do not manipulate, they do not hide intentions. They simply exist, pure and instinctive, making them, in certain moments, perfect instruments for something greater than themselves. But this is where many people misunderstand. Padre Pio never encouraged superstition. He never told people to chase signs or see meaning in every shadow. Instead, he spoke about discernment, about recognizing when something ordinary carries an extraordinary peace, a presence that cannot be explained by logic alone. Because there is a difference between imagination and encounter, between coincidence and a moment that touches your soul in a way you cannot ignore. Even Scripture reflects this reality. From the very beginning, God has spoken through creation, animals included, moments where something simple became a vessel for something divine. Not as magic, but as communication, as a quiet language that reaches the heart when words fail. And this is what makes it so powerful, because when someone is at their lowest point, when they are about to give up, drift away, or lose hope completely, heaven moves, not loudly, not in a way that overwhelms, but in a way that protects, consoles, and gently calls them back. And sometimes, just sometimes, That call comes through a living creature crossing their path at the exact moment they need it most. What you are about to hear next is not about superstition, it is about awareness, about understanding that not everything is random, and that in certain moments, the ordinary world becomes a doorway through which something eternal quietly reaches into your life. The first animal that Padre Pio frequently connected to the presence of angels is the bird, especially when it appears in a way that feels unusual, persistent, or perfectly timed with a moment of deep emotion, prayer, or inner struggle. And this is not something random when you truly reflect on it, because throughout history, birds have always symbolized something higher, something spiritual, something that belongs to a realm we cannot fully reach, which is why angels themselves are often depicted with wings, representing a connection between heaven and earth, a movement between what is seen and what is unseen. Padre Pio taught that when a bird enters your space in a way that feels different, not ordinary, not fleeting, but intentional, you should not react with fear or superstition, but with awareness and prayer, because there are moments when such encounters carry a quiet message that the heart can feel even if the mind cannot explain it. There are many testimonies of people who, in their darkest moments, experience something like this. A bird landing unusually close, remaining longer than expected, looking directly at them, singing in a way that felt almost deliberate, or simply staying in silence as if its presence alone was enough. And while to an outside observer it might seem insignificant, to the person experiencing it, something shifts internally, something softens, something opens. One story that deeply reflects this is about a woman named Sarah, a nurse who had been overwhelmed by grief after losing her mother. She had stopped praying, distanced herself from faith, and carried a weight of anger and emptiness that she could not shake. And one morning, after a night so dark that she had nearly given up completely, she sat outside in silence, feeling nothing, expecting nothing, when suddenly a small bird landed right in front of her, close enough that it broke the stillness of the moment. And instead of flying away, it stayed, watching her, and then it began to sing, not in a random or fleeting way, but in a steady, almost melodic rhythm that filled the silence around her. In that moment, something inside her broke open. Tears she had held back for months finally came, and with them came something she had not felt in a long time. A deep and unexplainable peace, not loud, not overwhelming, but real, present, and undeniable. And the bird remained there as if marking that exact moment, before eventually flying away, leaving behind a change that would alter the course of her life. Because that same day, she returned to prayer and sought reconciliation after years of distance. Padre Pio would explain this not as the bird being an angel itself, but as something far more subtle, that God allows angels to work through creation, to use what is already present in the world to reach a soul at the exact moment it is needed. And the response to such an encounter is not curiosity or the search for more signs, but gratitude and prayer, a simple turning of the heart back toward God. At the same time, he warned clearly that not every bird carries such meaning. Most are simply part of nature. And the difference lies not in the animal itself, but in what happens within you during that moment. The sudden peace, the unexpected comfort, the feeling that you are not alone even when everything around you suggests otherwise. And when that happens, it is not something to ignore, but something to acknowledge quietly. Because sometimes, in the moment when you are about to break, heaven does not shout. It sends something small, something gentle, something with wings, just to remind you that you are still seen, still held, and never truly alone. The second animal that Padre Pio associated with angelic presence may surprise you because it is something so familiar, so close to human life, that we often overlook its deeper meaning. And that animal is the dog, a creature long recognized as a symbol of loyalty, vigilance, and protection, qualities that closely reflect the silent work of angels in guarding and guiding souls, especially in moments when we are most vulnerable, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Padre Pio spoke about how angels protect without drawing attention to themselves, and in some cases, that protection becomes visible through something simple, something natural, like a dog appearing at the exact moment danger is near, or when a person is on the edge of making a life-altering mistake, not as a coincidence, but as a quiet intervention that changes the outcome of what could have been tragedy. There are countless testimonies of people who experience this kind of protection, moments when a dog appeared out of nowhere, stayed close without explanation, or acted in a way that seemed to interrupt something harmful before it could happen. And while the world may explain these moments as luck or instinct, Padre Pio pointed to something deeper, that God, in His mercy, allows certain elements of creation to become instruments of protection when a soul is at risk. One powerful story that reflects this is about a man named Thomas, who after a long and exhausting day found himself driving late at night, tired, unfocused, and not fully aware of how dangerous his condition truly was. And as he moved along a dark and empty road, his concentration began to slip, his eyes growing heavier with each passing moment, until suddenly a large dog ran directly into his path, forcing him to slam on the brakes with a shock that instantly woke him up. At first it felt like an inconvenience, an unexpected interruption, but as he stepped out of the car, his frustration quickly turned into realization, because just a few feet ahead, hidden in the darkness, was a massive fallen tree branch blocking the road completely, something he would not have seen in time had he continued at the same speed. And in that moment, it became clear that what had just happened was not random. It was the difference between life and a potentially fatal accident. When he turned back to look for the dog, it was gone, completely disappeared without a trace. No sound, no movement, nothing to explain where it had come from or where it had gone, leaving behind only the undeniable awareness that something had intervened at the exact right moment. Padre Pio would never claim that the animal itself possessed supernatural power, but he would explain that heaven sometimes works through what is already present in the world, allowing protection to take a visible form when it is needed most. And the proper response to such an experience is not obsession or fear, but gratitude, a recognition that you were not alone in that moment, even if you could not see what was truly guiding it. At the same time, he emphasized the importance of maintaining a spiritual life that welcomes such protection, encouraging practices that strengthen the presence of grace within one's home and daily routine. Because when a person lives in awareness, in prayer, and in openness to God, they become more receptive to these quiet interventions, these moments where the unseen becomes just visible enough to redirect a path, to prevent harm, or to remind someone that they are being watched over in ways they may never fully understand. And sometimes that protection arrives not with overwhelming force, but with something as simple as a loyal presence stepping into your path at exactly the right time. The third animal that Padre Pio connected to angelic presence is not something you usually see walking into your life like a bird or a dog. And that is what makes it the most powerful, because the lamb does not appear outside, it appears within, representing innocence, mercy, and the quiet call to return. A symbol deeply rooted in Scripture as a reflection of Christ Himself. And Padre Pio taught that when heaven wants to save a soul, it does not begin with fear or force, it begins by softening the heart. This is where many people misunderstand the signs they experience, because the presence of the Lamb is not dramatic, it is subtle, often felt as an unexpected awareness, a sudden discomfort with one's own choices, or a gentle but persistent desire to change, to pray again, to return after a long time of distance. And while it may feel like your own thoughts, Padre Pio insisted that in many cases, this is the quiet work of angels guiding you back before it is too late. You may recognize it as that moment when, without warning, you feel drawn to pray after months or years of silence, or when you think about going back to church even though nothing around you has changed, or when a sense of regret surfaces not to condemn you, but to invite you into something better, something cleaner, something restored. This is the language of grace, and unlike the other signs, it does not demand attention, it waits for your response, because the Lamb does not force, it invites. And Padre Pio warned that this invitation does not last forever, that there are moments when heaven opens a door, and if ignored long enough, that door quietly closes. That is why he emphasized urgency, Not in a way that creates fear, but in a way that awakens awareness. Because when that inner call appears, it is not something to delay or analyze endlessly. It is something to act on, to respond to immediately. Whether that means returning to prayer, seeking forgiveness, or simply taking the first step back toward God. And if you have felt something like this recently, that quiet pull, that gentle but undeniable voice within, then do not ignore it, because it may be the most important moment you have been given. A silent invitation from heaven, carried not through what you see, but through what you feel, asking you to come back before the opportunity passes. Before ending this, Padre Pio gave one important warning. Not every sign comes from heaven, which is why discernment matters, because true signs bring peace, draw you closer to God, and lead you toward prayer and humility, while false ones create fear, confusion, or distraction. He taught that the right response is simple. Do not chase signs, but do not ignore them when they bring you closer to truth. Instead, pray, give thanks, and remain grounded in faith. If something you experienced brought you peace in the middle of pain, reminded you that you are not alone, or stirred your heart to return, then receive it quietly and respond, because heaven often speaks in ways that are easy to overlook. Remember this, you are never alone, even in your lowest moments, and sometimes the answer does not come in dramatic ways. Sometimes it comes with wings, sometimes with quiet footsteps, and sometimes as a gentle voice within your own heart. But it always carries the same message, that you are seen, you are protected, and you are being called back.